I'm just Bodo, or I just call me Bodo, and welcome to my second video of my Road Guide series. And today we're going to be breaking down how to play the Rogue. We're going to get into the nitty gritty, win conditions, fundamentals, stuff like that. Now, this is 2 of 3 of the video. This video is about the fundamentals of Rogue and how the overall class should be played in its strongest form. By that, I typically mean 1v1. But we will cover formats and how the rogue does change going from like 1v1 to 5v5. But I do have a disclaimer here. Certain formats that don't favor the rogue and forces it to play a completely different playstyle will not be covered in this video, but as briefly mentioned, we'll just kind of go over it. I give like a pretty good broad like paintbrush stroke. But a future dedicated video are required to properly break down the alternate playstyles, especially once you get to like 20v20s. Uh, what I do have in this video will easily explain up to a 5v5 and even an 8v8. But in those much bigger fights, a 20v20 in a lot of ways a lot different from a 40v40 and a 60v60. And to be honest with you, if we're talking about castle sieges, the rogue is going to be completely played in a different light if there's side objectives. If we're talking about like node wars and settlement sieges and stuff like that, there's so many different things the rogue could excel at and do. But there is a typical playstyle when you are doing like a 20v20 roam out in the wilderness, stuff like that. So we'll talk about that in a different video. In terms of the win conditions for the rogue, let's get right into the video. The first win condition is simply bait out the CC breaker of our opponent and then punish them, and usually get a really good trade or even a kill off just because they can't get out any more of our additional CC in our kit. This is actually really, really good. I think this is where most people get frustrated, even myself, fighting other good rogue players. Like if you're watching Hera, in Nosington, if you know, you know. It can be very frustrating getting CC chained. That's why I highly recommend, if you want to really practice these win conditions and the fundamentals of rogue, you should practice a 1v1 versus another rogue, typically someone that's pretty good, and you'll be exposed to the cracks of rogue and really excel in terms of just getting better. So if we were fighting a mage in this example, it's the blink that's the CC break. I'm pretty sure it's the blink, the little teleport. When you see them use their primary CC breaker, they're cooked right after that. Like they got nothing for, I think it's a 30-second cooldown. So you got that window to exploit them. So your primary job is to force a CC break. Once it's gone, you can chain CC and pretty much damage them safely. But as we talk about the mage, in that type of matchup, there are defensive cooldowns that are worth waiting out. So for example, for fighting that mage, I think if you guys know the shield that they get, the bubble shield, that is a very strong, good defensive cooldown for the mage. And what it allows the mage to do is to essentially commence a trade. Like, okay, we're just going to blast our abilities at each other, but now I have all this extra HP and effective HP that you have to get through. So I'm going to try and burst you before you can burst me, stuff like that. So a lot of the time is what I prefer to do is just wait out the strong defensive cooldowns. The rogue, we can reposition, we can soft reset, we can hard reset. We can just sleep dart the target. That's what I like to do. If there's a strong defensive cooldown, I'll just sleep dart my target and I'll just wait out the cooldown while standing next to them. And prep a backstab. So that's another strong win condition. If your opponent pops a big defensive cooldown, don't fight it, back off, reset, and re-engage the moment it ends. Force them to lose out a defensive cooldown and potentially force a CC break without committing any cooldowns or HP. And essentially what this means is that there are times where your opponent may want to hold their CC break as long as possible, and they'll go through all their defensive cooldowns first. And there's a lot of times that you're going to play a cat and mouse game, but most classes don't have a huge plethora. Like the mage, for example, you only really have those two abilities to look out for. So once they're both used, they're cooked, and you just go in and you just rope and dope them. But we do have a third win condition, and typically for fighting like a harder class, like a tank or a cleric, uh, bard, not really, because if you fight a good bard player, you'll never get close enough to be consistent. But it's mainly tanks and clerics is the prime example. Sometimes if they're really well geared and you can't really DPS them down as quickly, or like your opponent's just good, like he's just outmatching you. We have a broken ability to use mana drain poison to slowly whittle down their mana and eventually starve them out. We have a ticking time bomb, which is essentially an auto win if we play it correctly. If you're fighting a strong opponent and you're in real danger of getting outmatched in close range, maintaining your mana drain poison plus playing safe 9 out of 10 times lead to a victory, but this is not 100% certain. You can always get outmatched, outskilled, outgeared. Fighting a good tank or even cleric usually requires you to use this strategy as your default plan. And this is very true. There's too many defensive cooldowns or just too much healing from the cleric. Depending if there's a huge gear disparity, that you're going to have to resort to this as your pretty much sole win condition. And just learning to play a little bit more conservative, a little bit more passive, but constantly applying pressure so you can constantly apply this mana drain is very important, and is usually how you starve them out to win. So let's go to the fundamentals. The actual this is how you should play the rogue. These are typically our win conditions, so there's going to be a little bit of overlap. But this is how I feel you should think about the rogue and the rogue playstyle. Now, what I will say, a lot of this information is kind of geared towards 1v1, but it extends to 2v2s and 3v3s very effectively. 44s and 5v5s, you have to switch up your game a little bit. 66, 7v7, 8v8, you have to switch up your game even more, because now there's a bigger chance of you getting popped. And then as you get higher and higher and higher, your gameplay just keeps swapping and switching, and just it gets worse and worse and worse, and you have to play a completely different playstyle of rogue. So pretty much what we're really going over is rogue in its strongest form, which is like 5v5, 8v8, 1v1. But even that trend, it's going to be slowly changing. But these fundamentals do lend with the evolution of rogue. So number one, you're going to be doing this even in 1v1s all the way up to 20v20s. Always set up your opponent with CC and expect them to use their CC breaker. This is something that you do want to track yourself. You do want to have the ability to mark targets once you see a target break one of your sleep darts. That way you can tell your team and you can collapse on that target. Example would be open with a sleep dart, walk forward, apply poison before backstabbing, and then as you get close, you may CC break. That we're kind of repeating a little bit from the first episode, but we're also kind of repeating our win condition too. This is a very simple opener for the rogue that doesn't commit to any serious cooldowns, but allows us to react to CC breaks in time to potentially follow up if they have no immunity or reset to burn an immunity or defensive cooldown. Controlling this layering and effectiveness of both your cooldowns and the opponents is the high skill entry to rogue that most people do not fully understand. This is more of a 1v1 example, but it lends to all the way up to 20v20. What does this mean? Learn all the CC breakers of defensive cooldowns of all other classes, and start shadowboxing all the different combinations of layering that could happen. And this carries well all the way up to like 5v5s. Once you get into much bigger formats, it really doesn't matter. It's more about just setting up your team, and even playing defensively for your team as like a counter dive. But number two, damage is secondary to a rogue, even in 1v1s. And this point becomes more and more and more true the farther you go up in the format. Like when you get to 20v20s, dude, you damage is not even on your radar. You're essentially a support that sets up an engagement or extends an engagement, or like shuts down a specific um, class, like a cleric, if there's a huge dive attempt that's going to happen, stuff like that. So the reason rogue with bad gear or even missing gear can still dominate fully kitted out players is because of their CC, their movement, and their ability to reset, which is the best in the game. I know this is resting. Why I haven't changed it, I don't know. Yeah, sorry. Positioning correctly during a fight, plus understanding how your opponent class is played, can dramatically change what cooldowns you're willing to prioritize and which to save for the opportunity in a fight, especially for 1v1s. Once you have applied dominance in a fight, you can safely shut down your opponent. Then committing to a full damage combo is the best strategy, but not all classes you fight will give you this window or opportunity to capitalize on. Especially once you leave 1v1s and you get to 3v3s and 4v4s and 5v5s. Um, even if you shut down one target, there are 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 other targets that could want to help out or save their buddy, especially if you're targeting a cleric, and they'll just collapse onto you. So playing elusive, playing tricky, even if you're turning heads, it's doing a lot for your team. It's doing a lot. So sometimes it's better to play slippery and just be that guy that you always have to be worried of. And you can dramatically help your teammates. Number 3, mana drain is broken. I even have like a little public service announcement. But practicing how to effectively apply mana drain consistently during a fight will greatly increase your ability to win harder matchups. This doesn't just apply to mana drain. I just put mana drain here because it's a really good example. But typically what we're talking about is our poisons. The wounding poison and our mana drain poison, to me, I believe, are like the only 2 poisons you really want to use. There is an argument for chill. There is an argument for chill, especially if you have a lot of mages. You can combo things in a lot of janky ways. You can be like the specialist. You can be like the chill rogue. But typically you want that mana drain, you want that wound. In 1v1s, the mana drain we've already kind of talked about in the in our win conditions, why it's so good. With the wounds in the larger formats, especially once you get to like you could use it early as 4v4s, but once you get to like bigger formats, especially like 20v20s, you want to use wounding. Just being able to reduce the amount of healing the enemy team can receive is massive. And there's a very few classes that can do that on a massive AoE scale, and I believe you're one of 2, if I'm not mistaken. You may be the only one, but I think there is another class that can do it. I think Ranger can do it. I just haven't played Ranger in a long time, so I can't really remember. I personally believe that the mana drain poison should be removed from the game, since it's a huge reason why Rogue can dominate harder matchups in 1v1s. And if Rogue did not have access to the mana drain, then fighting gear tanks, clerics would be more balanced. And it would probably stop a lot of the conversations of like, Rogue is too strong in 1v1s. Rogue needs to be nerfed. Like, we need a gut. It's the mana drain. If people would say, oh, I'll just play take and I'll beat up all those rogues, then we wouldn't have this conversation of essentially rogue being supreme. You'd see a lot more rogues losing to a tank and to a very good cleric that are fully geared. Vantage management. Playing around your advantage is very important, since some of your abilities require to consume or change them into more powerful versions. So rule of thumb, always keep one advantage available so that you can use all of your abilities in any situation, plus keep powerful benefits of most of your kit. This also translates to your dodge. I didn't really talk about this in the first video, which is actually a mistake on my part. But your dodge, most normal dodge is 50 stamina. That's usually what the cost of your dodge is. But with Rogue, it's 30. If you have advantage. And then also if you dodge, and during your dodge, let's say someone was auto attacking you and the misses trigger as you're dodging, as what happens in dodge, you'll further reduce the stamina cost to 15. So a lot of the time, if you're in the heat of the battle, you can just chain your dodges and go from one side of the fight to the next, uh, constantly evading a bunch of shots, and it only costs 15 mana per dodge, which is hilarious. It's very strong. So keeping that advantage, even besides Umbral Cloak and your CC breakers, it's so strong, so powerful if you use it correctly. So what does this mean? If you have 2 advantage, you need to think about how you will regain 1 advantage if you decide to spend one. So let's say you use your kick ability with 2 stacks of advantage, then you would end up consuming 1 stack. So comboing it into a quick 10 stack sap, that's if you already applied poison beforehand, or a Thrash and Fury combo, you get the advantage on the 3rd Thrash hit. Or Smoke Bomb into Stealth combo, you get the advantage once you enter Stealth. Combo would easily net you back 1 advantage. But remember, if you need to burn your last advantage, like CC breaking with Umbral Croak, then you should really focus on resetting on your safest. You should really focus on resetting as your safest option, even if it's a soft reset. Or smoke bombing into a stealth if you're intending to all in. So there are times where you do want to consume all of your advantage and you just want to commit and go all in. The safest way of doing that is to make sure you have a smoke bomb up. That way you can constantly drop in and out of stealth to generate self advantage. Whoa. I apologize. Almost took myself out on my spit. My gosh. But yeah, it's controlling your advantage is very important. We're going to talk a lot about advantage and ability optimization and comboing and weaving and stuff like that in our last and third final video. So now let's talk about the formats and basically how you approach them changes up. Yeah, some tea here. Oh man, what is this thing that keeps popping up? Because like there's nothing behind me. Oh wait, it's my cowboy hat. I see it. Okay. 1v1s. Track cooldowns, react intelligently, and force momentum you want. This is just gibberish I just put there. Just do everything I've listed up here in the 1v1s. There you go. Boom, easy. 2v2s. This is where you start to see your gameplay change. In 2v2s, the strongest possible thing you can do is to sleep one target and gain up and fight the other target. A lot of times when you do that, the target that you sleep will burn a CC breaker because they feel like, oh, I can't just let him die because we'll just lose the fight. And what you want to do is that you want to have that person that you slept marked so that when this guy CC breaks, you guys can swap targets and start gaining up on the guy that now doesn't have a CC breaker. And then you can then follow up by sleep darting the other target if you can. A lot of times, because they don't have that CC breaker, you gaining up on this target and then you as the rogue just chain CC in this target, it's still a 2v1 because he can't do any damage. So a lot of times you don't actually have to sleep dart this other person. But it depends on the class. If this guy is like a fighter, yeah, you probably want to sleep dart him because you're going to turn on his friend right after he CC breaks, and then he's probably going to be like, I'm going to whirlwind. So yeah, 3v3, keep one target neutralized and pivot pressure with your team. You can pretty much repeat what you did in the 2v2. You can sleep one target and focus another target with the rest of your team. You can also sleep 2 targets, and you can actually wait and see who decides to CC break first, and then you can mark that target. And then you can pivot with your team immediately or like a couple seconds after. 4v4s, you're going to split the enemy attention. Like one of the strategies, I should say, is just splitting the enemy's attention by just solely focusing on one target. You could sleep dart one person, focus on one target, and then your team could gain up as a 3v2. And then if one of them decides to break the sleep, you can also do what you've done in the 2v2s and 3v3s prior, and then you sleep the other guy and you swap. But another approach is just to be a disruptor. Just go in, CC one guy, jam up another guy, uh, get a very juicy AoE kick, create those kill windows, make sure you're focusing all the same guy, or like what I like to do with my teams, um, is that I will prioritize the cleric, and I will make the cleric's job a living hell. um, and that way my team can have our heals working, and we can kill one focus target, either the cleric or a different target, while I prevent their heals. And a lot of the time, if my team does focus on a different target besides the cleric, uh, what happens is that a lot of times their cleric will be screaming in their Discord, "I need help, get this rogue off me, blah blah blah," and I will pull off one or two additional people onto me, which allows my teammates to easily gain up on one person and just blow them out of the water. So, um, in this situation, you have to play it right, and you can really help out your team. 5v5 plus. So in the 5v5, there's one more additional person. You have to be a little bit more slippery. You can't just solely focus one person and allow your team to kind of allow the enemy team to collapse on you to deal with you. Um, you do have to be a lot more slippery. Maybe sleep dart two people, and then you do the same thing where you see which one CC breaks, and you make that guy your little puppet, or you focus the cleric, or you save your sleep darts to, if they have two clerics, to prioritize both the clerics by sleep darting one cleric and focusing the other cleric with your CC, and making both of their lives miserable as well, giving your team the damage and healing advantage so that they can gain up on one person. Stuff like that. You're now a disruptor, not a duelist at all. You're really there just to survive, peel, split attention, and punish positioning. And then once your team is able to get the man advantage off killing someone, then you can really, swap on a dime and really start pressuring and trying to kill someone as in complete 1v1, or continuing to shut down their clerics or the bard. And in bigger group PvP fights, so like 20v20s, staying alive and drawing pressure can be just as valuable as landing a big CC. Most of the time, you're defending dives, looking for AoE kick opportunities, or shutting down a specific target like a cleric. So a good example of this in a 20v20 example is if your team decides to hard dive, and like blow up the middle of the fight. A lot of times as a rogue, you want to target their clerics and their healers, or even a bard. So as your team dives, you're shutting down the healers. It's huge job and responsibility if that happens. Another thing is, let's say uh, our friendly tank pulls in like a target or something. It is your responsibility to jump on that target and make sure he cannot leave. Because usually your tank will then follow up with a wall, and between the tank wall and you can really shut down target. 8v8's not as big. Got a lot more freedom, but you're still playing solely as a disruptor. You're not a duelist. There's enough people there that if you try to set up on a target and you stay there just a little too long, the enemy can just target closest enemy and just blow you up with auto attacks. So there's a lot of stuff in play. The playstyle switch up once you get to a 5v5 and beyond is significant and detailed, which deserves its own video to explain. And sadly, just not this video. I try to give you a very good broad paint stroke of like 8v8s, 20v20s, and stuff like that. But I will say, I feel like how you play bigger fights is just dedicated to its own video. There's just so many different ability combos you're going to use, how you want to play around with the team, especially if like dives and stuff like that, especially in bigger fights. There's a lot of different things. So yeah, I believe that is everything. That is, once again, if you have any questions, if you feel like there's something you want to challenge or have an alternate opinion on, comment down below. Let me know. I'm making this video to help people. It's really, I don't care. Like, just, I have no ego when it comes to this. Some people are going to play the class differently than I do. All I'm really just trying to do is just give a leg up to all the beginners and intermediate people that are struggling. So yeah, thank you and have a nice day.